And those aren't just doggies. So summertime in New York means a lot of smallmouth fishing for me personally. The creeks for trout get a little too warm, and so I try to leave the trout alone and I target smallmouth. And now as the summer is winding down and I've fished smallmouth to my heart's content, I decided I would get a couple more trips in the Genesee River before it gets too cold for the smallmouth. So one of those trips I decided to do was a fly fishing only trip, and the challenge was to catch big smallmouth. Now I'm not talking 6-pounders, 8-pounders that are 20 plus inches long. I'm talking 15, 16 inches, probably in the 3-pound range is the biggest that I'll see. And this section of the river is particularly challenging because when it floods, it's so flooded that you got to wait at least a week before the water goes back down so that I can wade. And so that's kind of what happened. I waited a week and the river was prime, and I started walking and walking, and just when you think you can't walk anymore, you walk just a little more. And once I got to the river, I walked some more, and then I crossed a few times, and that's really why I need the water to be low enough, is because I can't even cross some of these spots when the water's too high. And the first spot can be a little tricky sometimes. Sometimes I catch a lot of smallmouth. The spot isn't as nice as what it used to be, but it has kind of that trouty look through this whole section I'm gonna fish. And I've never caught trout out of there before. It's always been too warm or it's too high. And I pretty much just only fish this section for smallmouth. I cast far up into the headwaters of this hole, into the riffles, and I hooked up. Okay, we're on. And I didn't expect that I was gonna hook up to a rainbow trout. And you can hear on the video that I'm a little shocked, a little surprised, because we don't find trout in this section. Oh, this isn't a smallmouth. What the heck? All right. And so that was pretty cool. And once I got that first fish, kind of the icebreaker fish of the trip, I didn't really know what to expect. Was I going to catch any more trout? Was I going to catch smallmouth? I was pretty sure I would, but you really never know. That's why they call it fishing. And then I stopped recording for a while and decided, you know what? I'm going to try to put a fly under this tree. There's a down tree in there, and I haven't ever caught any fish from around or under that tree, but I figured it's been in there long enough that probably there's a fish that calls that tree home now. So I put 2 casts in there. So my first cast just wasn't good enough. It wasn't deep enough. It wasn't close enough to the tree. So I put my next cast nicely right to the side of that tree with a little perch fly that I have. It's unweighted, but I knew that my weighted line would get me deep enough. I just let it sink under and float through there, and all of a sudden I was off to the races with my first good fish of the day. Okay, well, this is a good fish. I put a cast right along that tree. He just came out and smashed this little perch fly. Oh yeah. Woo. That's what I was looking for. Oh yeah. It's not even where I expected to catch a big one either. Whew. Trip made. Hey, that was kind of my goal of this trip, was to catch a nice legal size fish. I'm not keeping, but I'm putting back. But it was just nice to see that those fish exist. A lot of spots of the Genesee River down near me, you either catch 1 or 2 big size fish, or pretty much a dozen little tiny guys. And so this section I knew, this 3-mile stretch that I walked, there were going to be some bigger fish. So I was happy to get the first one in pretty fast. And I said, bye, let him go. And I was off to the next spot. So I got to my next spot, and my first cast, I hook a tree. I did get that lure out, and then I knew I wasn't getting deep enough into the main section of this water. So it's really a 90-degree turn, where the river takes a 90-degree turn, fast moving riffles into a deeper pool. And that's where I've caught my personal best, so I was hopeful. But after I didn't really see much, I was kind of thinking, it's just not going to happen today. This is not the spot that I'm going to catch another big fish. I did put a heavier fly on. I did hook and catch one fish, just a little guy, about 10-inch range, I would say. Put him back. And then after that, I would cast and cast and cast and cast, and nothing. And then eventually, I hook a tree in the water. And I've hooked it before, but I didn't think I could get in deep enough to take it out. So I just had to break it off. And that's how it goes sometimes. So I skipped over across the river to the next spot. And this spot's got a nice dead tree on the side that's pretty much always been in the water. And I like to use that as my platform. So I stand up on top, gives me a nice aerial view down into the water. And normally I can catch them across the way. So I put a couple shots over there with my crayfish fly, and I hooked up. Oh! That wasn't a snag. Not a big fish though. This is my fishing platform. I love this spot. Don't fall off the tree. There we go. And while that bass wasn't anything major, it was just nice to know that there were still some fish there and I could still catch them. So after I put him back, a couple casts later, and I caught another one. This one wasn't really that big either, but the interesting thing about this fish was he was pretty much missing his whole tail. I've never really seen that before, so I tried to be delicate with that poor little fella, and I put him back. Oh my. This one's got a little problem with his tail. Lost it at some point. And this is kind of the part of the trip where I knew I'd have to walk a lot farther, so I didn't really film at all. I just kept walking and walking and walking. And I found a couple spots that I thought, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna throw a couple in here. It looks pretty good. I have caught a couple fish out of there before, but nothing too major, nothing lately. So I tried and there was nothing there. So I turned my camera off. I walk about 50 yards farther up, and then I found another big fish, kind of accidentally. So I had to hit the record button fast. Kind of chaos ensued when he comes in, tangles up my line. I try to net him and can't, and then pulls me back out, and then I finally was able to net him. And that was my second really nice fish of the trip. Not in a place I expected, but I was happy to get him in. In this section of the river, there's a lot of silt buildup, and anytime the water rises from rain, all that silt washes down, and that pretty much means no bueno for fishing until that all clears. So I wasn't sure about how many fish were going to be in that section. That's why I wasn't recording the first one that I just caught. So I moved up about 50 yards or so to the next spot, which was kind of the beginning of that whole section. And that looked pretty good. There was a nice tree down. Threw a couple casts, nothing, changed the angle, and I hooked up to my third pretty nice sized fish. Ooh. Whoa. And now I'm thinking, okay, my trip's pretty much made at this point, just in terms of size and not necessarily the numbers of fish, but I'm really about the quality of fish in this video. And so I was pretty happy with that. But I moved up a little farther into a really deep pool. And I thought, okay, if I'm gonna catch a really big fish, it's gonna be out of here. Oh shoot. Sometimes it's not definitive of why you think the hole is good, or you can't necessarily describe it. There wasn't much cover, but I felt like the deepness of the pool was really gonna take over the lack of cover and lack of structure. That's what I saw. It's not a smallmouth. It's a really nice trout. Rainbow, I think. Yep, it is a rainbow. Oh, come on. Oh, he's not ready yet. Ugh. Wow. Nice rainbow, wow. Look at that fish. And that was pretty much the cherry on top for my trip. I did have probably another 1.5 miles to walk, but I was pretty content with just, you know, having a good time after this. So I switched to a couple flies, threw in there again, and found nothing. Went to the next spot with some trees in the water, and that always looks like a juicy spot, though I've never done super well there. But I put a couple casts by this tree. Well, let's try over there by those sticks. It's like a yummy spot for a fish to hang out. Oh yeah. I haven't even seen this fish yet. He's fighting pretty good. I can't get this fish off the bottom. Oh, here he comes. He's not done yet. Ugh. My arm's getting tired. Here he comes. Oh. This one's bigger than the other ones. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And while this smallmouth wasn't a St. Lawrence River or a Niagara River smallmouth, I was pretty happy with the size of this one. And like I said, I was already pretty happy with the trip, and this one just, if there was more cherries or more icing to put on the cake, that was it. And so, you know, I was pretty happy with that one too. I was getting attacked by these damselflies, just flying around, but I still had a pretty good time. So I put on that fly that I was trying before. I don't really know exactly what it's called. It's just a nice swimmy fly. And I was determined to catch a fish. Darn it, I just want to catch a fish on this fly. Is that too much to ask? Apparently. And I did. About 10 yards above the one that I just had caught, I hooked another smallmouth. Oh, there he is, finally. I'm literally getting hit in the face by either a dragonfly or a damsel. And while I didn't know it at the time, this was going to be my last fish on camera of the evening. And as it was getting too dark to see, too dark to film, and the coyote started howling, I caught one more fish that I couldn't film, but I took a picture for you. And I hustled back to the road, and that was the end of my trip. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Ben in the Great Outdoors.